You have spent months eating healthy, moving your body, and strictly avoiding sugar, yet that stubborn abdominal fat simply will not disappear. In fact, it continues to grow. What is even worse is that no one truly explains to you why this is happening. The real answer does not lie in eating less. It resides in one specific food that the majority of people ignore, which you are going to learn about today. Look, there is something occurring during menopause that almost no doctor ever explains to you properly. Your body is not failing. Rather, it is following an entirely new set of rules. The problem is that you are still playing with the old rules, and that choice changes everything. It is not a lack of discipline. It is not that your metabolism is broken, but it is that the internal mechanisms that once controlled where your body stored fat have shifted. And when that happens, what worked at 35 simply no longer works at 52. Within this video, you will understand exactly why that abdominal accumulation which causes so much desperation occurs, and you will discover the number one food backed by clinical evidence that can make a real difference in your body composition, your energy, and your overall well-being starting this very week. Stay until the very end because I am going to give you a 3-minute ritual that you can apply starting today. It is concrete, involves no expensive supplements, no extreme fasting, and will not make you go crazy with your diet. I have spent years working with people over 50 who are facing exactly this. Menopause is not a life sentence. It is a change of rules. When you understand these new rules, you can finally play the game to your advantage. If you are watching me for the first time, please write to me in the comments from which city or country you are watching. It is honestly one of my favorite parts of making every video. Before we talk about the food, you need to understand one fundamental thing. Without this, the rest will not make sense. During menopause, the body stops producing estrogen in a sustained way, and estrogen, beyond regulating the menstrual cycle, fulfilled a function that very few people know about. It acted as a traffic guard for body fat. While estrogen levels were normal, fat tended to be deposited in the hips and thighs, areas that from a cardiovascular point of view are relatively safe. When estrogen drops, that guard disappears and the fat needs a new destination. That destination is the abdomen, more specifically the interior of the abdomen, what we call visceral fat. Imagine it like this. For decades, you had a well-constructed dam that controlled where the water of a river flowed. Menopause arrives, the dam weakens, and the water begins to flood lands that were previously dry. That abdominal flooding is not just cosmetic. Visceral fat is metabolically active, produces low-grade inflammation, interferes with insulin, and directly raises cardiovascular risk. And there is something more. This process does not occur alone. When estrogen goes down, 3 things happen in parallel that reinforce each other. First, insulin sensitivity decreases. The body needs more insulin to process the same amount of carbohydrates. More insulin in the blood is directly equivalent to more fat storage signals. Second, cortisol, the stress hormone, gains ground. With less estrogen to balance it, cortisol rises. And cortisol has a very specific direction. It tells the body to accumulate abdominal fat, not in the thighs, in the abdomen. Third, muscle mass begins to decrease. Less muscle means a slower metabolism because muscle is the furnace where the body burns energy, even at rest. 3 forces acting at the same time, all pushing in the same direction. More fat, more abdomen, more difficulty reversing it with the methods that worked before. And here comes what few tell you. It is not about eating less. It is about eating differently, specifically to counteract those 3 forces. The number one food to reduce abdominal fat in menopause is the whole egg. And pay attention because the reason is not what you are probably thinking. I am not telling you that the egg is good because it has protein. Everyone knows that. I am explaining why the whole egg specifically acts on the 3 mechanisms that we just saw: insulin resistance, elevated cortisol, and muscle loss. At the same time, it is the only everyday, accessible, and economical food that does those 3 things at once, and most people who are in this stage are not taking advantage of it correctly. Either they consume it wrong, or they consume only half, or they eliminated it for fear of a myth that science has already overcome. Let us go by parts. Think of your cells as locks and insulin as the key. When there is insulin resistance, the locks start to get stuck. The key exists, but it does not turn well. The result, glucose stays circulating in the blood longer than necessary, and the pancreas produces more insulin to compensate. More insulin, more fat storage signal. The whole egg has a combination that very few animal proteins can match. Complete protein of high bioavailability plus choline. Choline is a nutrient that most people over 50 consume in insufficient quantities and has a direct role in insulin signaling at the cellular level. Observational studies published in clinical nutrition journals suggest that higher choline consumption is associated with better insulin sensitivity in postmenopausal women, although the evidence continues in development. One whole egg provides approximately 147 milligrams of choline. The daily need for an adult woman is around 425 milligrams. 2 eggs for breakfast give you more than 60% of that need in a single meal. Now think about this. How many times do you reach noon with intense hunger, serve yourself more than you planned, and then feel bad about it? That hunger is not always a lack of willpower. It is a signal that breakfast did not sustain your glucose in a stable way. The egg, due to its combination of high-quality protein and fat, produces a satiating effect that can last 4 or 5 hours. That stabilizes glucose and reduces the insulin spikes that accelerate abdominal accumulation. The practical action here is simple. This week, make 2 whole eggs the base of your breakfast at least 4 days. They can be scrambled, poached, soft-boiled, however you prefer. What matters is that they are complete eggs, not just whites, because the choline is in the yolk. Accompany with sautéed vegetables, and if you want a slice of rye bread or an nixtamalized corn tortilla. That is enough to start. Second mechanism, the egg and cortisol. Imagine that cortisol is an emergency director inside your body. When there is a real crisis, it is useful, it mobilizes quick energy, it puts you on alert. But when it lives in a state of permanent alert, due to poor sleep, chronic stress, or hormonal fluctuations, that director begins to make desperate decisions. And one of those decisions is to store emergency reserves right in the center of the body, near the liver, to be able to mobilize them quickly if there is a crisis. Menopause by itself elevates basal cortisol in many women. To this is added poor sleep, which is one of the most frequent symptoms in this stage. Less sleep, more cortisol, more abdominal fat. It is a circle that feeds back and that many people do not identify as part of the problem. Here is where the egg enters through a path that surprises many people: tryptophan. The whole egg is a natural source of tryptophan, the amino acid precursor of serotonin and melatonin. Serotonin regulates mood and the response to stress during the day. Melatonin regulates sleep quality at night. When both work better, cortisol remains more controlled, and when cortisol drops, the pressure on the abdomen decreases. In clinical practice, people who improve their sleep quality consistently, even if only moderately, usually notice a progressive reduction in abdominal accumulation in the following weeks. It is not magic, it is physiology. The practical action has 2 steps. First, if you can, eat something with easily digestible protein for dinner. Before 8 at night, 2 soft eggs with avocado work very well. Second, turn off screens 30 minutes before sleeping. Not as generic advice, blue light inhibits melatonin production and raises nocturnal cortisol directly. Those 2 steps together can make a notable difference in how you wake up and over time in how your abdomen responds. Third mechanism, the egg and muscle mass. This is the point that is least mentioned and that has the most impact in the long term. Imagine that your metabolism is a fireplace. For it to burn well, it needs wood. The wood in your body is the muscle. The more muscle you have, the more calories you burn at rest, even while sleeping. Menopause combined with a diet insufficient in protein is like taking wood out of that fireplace little by little. The flame goes out, the metabolism slows down, and with less fire, the same amount of food begins to produce more accumulation. Muscle protein synthesis, that is, the body's ability to build and maintain muscle, requires essential amino acids in sufficient quantity and quality. The whole egg has an amino acid profile that scientists use as a reference to compare other proteins. It is called biological value, and that of the egg is one of the highest that exists in nature. That means that almost everything you consume in egg protein, the body can use efficiently to maintain muscle, not to degrade it. Studies conducted on postmenopausal women suggest that distributing protein of high biological value throughout the day, instead of concentrating it in a single meal, is associated with less loss of muscle mass over time. The evidence is promising, although more research is needed in broad populations. The practical action here has to do with distribution. Do not concentrate all your protein at dinner. Distribute egg in breakfast, quality protein in lunch, something small protein at dinner. That pattern gives the body consistent signals that there is material available to maintain muscle, not to degrade it. And if you also walk 30 minutes a day or do some strength, even if it is with your own weight, the effect multiplies. Exercise and protein are partners. Separated they work, together they work much better. Here I show you how to organize a day around this food without reinventing your life. For breakfast, 2 scrambled or poached eggs cooked with a teaspoon of olive oil, half a cup of sautéed spinach, a slice of rye bread, or 2 nixtamalized corn tortillas. Coffee or tea without sugar if you wish, without juice, even if it is natural. Because by removing the fiber from the fruit, glucose rises faster than is convenient for you at that hour. Mid-morning, if you are hungry, a handful of walnuts or almonds, no more. That keeps glucose stable and prevents you from reaching noon with voracious hunger, which is when many people make the worst dietary decisions of the day. At lunch, quality protein. It can be fish, chicken, or well-prepared legumes with abundant vegetables and a moderate portion of complex carbohydrate. You do not have to eliminate rice or potatoes, just let them not be the protagonist of the plate. The protein and the vegetables occupy the center. In the afternoon, if you need something, a natural Greek yogurt without added sugar with some chia seeds, protein, good fat and fiber in a single combination that slows down insulin spikes. At night, something light and before 8. It can be the egg again, a vegetable soup with legumes, or a salad with protein. The key is that dinner is not the feast of the day. Your digestion needs to finish before the body enters recovery and sleep mode. Does it seem applicable? Write to me in the comments if this type of full-day example helps you more than just a list of foods. Having the right food is not enough if it is consumed wrong. These are the 3 errors I see most frequently in consultation. First error, eating only the whites and discarding the yolk. The yolk is where the choline is, the lutein, the zeaxanthin, vitamin D, and vitamin B12. When you only eat the white, you are left with less than half of the benefit. The fear of cholesterol from the egg comes from decades ago, and the most recent evidence has nuanced it considerably. For most healthy people, consuming 2 or 3 whole eggs a day does not significantly raise cardiovascular risk. That is documented in recent reviews from major clinical nutrition associations. Second error, cooking the egg at a very high temperature with refined oils. When you fry an egg in sunflower oil at maximum temperature, that oil oxidizes and produces pro-inflammatory compounds that go in the opposite direction of what you seek. The best option is olive oil at medium temperature or cooking it poached, soft, or steamed. The nutritional value is preserved much better, and the metabolic result is completely different. Third error, eating the egg accompanied by much simple carbohydrate. If you breakfast 2 eggs with orange juice, toasted white bread, and jam, the insulin effect of the simple carbohydrate can counteract much of the benefit of the egg on glucose. The combination matters as much as the food itself. Which of these 3 errors do you think you are committing? Write it in the comments. It helps me a lot to plan the following videos. The egg is the anchor of this strategy, but it has allies that multiply its effect on abdominal fat. Avocado combines ideally with the egg because it provides monounsaturated fat that improves insulin sensitivity and soluble fiber that feeds the beneficial bacteria of the intestine. The intestinal microbiota has a direct connection with estrogen metabolism. A healthy microbiota can improve the way the body manages residual estrogens after menopause. The combination of egg plus avocado is one of the most powerful you can make in your breakfast. Dark green leafy vegetables, spinach, kale, chard, are rich in magnesium, a mineral that participates in more than 300 enzymatic reactions, including those that regulate insulin and cortisol. Magnesium deficiency is very common in postmenopausal women and is associated with worse glycemic control and greater abdominal accumulation. A handful of spinach sautéed with the egg is not just a compliment, it has a real metabolic impact. Walnuts provide plant-based omega-3, which, although not as powerful as that of fatty fish, contributes to reducing the chronic low-grade inflammation that characterizes visceral fat. A small portion a day is enough to add up. Extra virgin olive oil, beyond using it for cooking, a couple of tablespoons a day over salads or vegetables, provides oleocanthal, a compound with documented anti-inflammatory effect. Observational studies in Mediterranean populations suggest that its habitual consumption is associated with less accumulation of abdominal fat, although it is difficult to isolate it from the complete dietary pattern. Flax or chia seeds, a tablespoon a day, provide lignans, plant compounds with weak estrogenic activity that in some postmenopausal women can help modulate slightly the symptoms related to the drop in estrogen. The evidence is preliminary, but the safety is high and the cost is minimal. Everything we have seen applies to the person in menopause without special medical conditions, but there are situations in which you need to consult with your doctor before making changes to your diet based on this video. If you are under treatment with medications for diabetes or with insulin, the adequate amount of protein and the impact on glucose can vary according to your specific case, and your doctor needs to know it. If you are in active treatment for some type of cancer or have a serious already diagnosed heart disease, dietary changes should always be coordinated with the medical team. If you have familial hypercholesterolemia, which is a genetic condition that elevates cholesterol significantly, regardless of diet, there may be specific indications about yolk consumption that must be respected. If you take anticoagulants like warfarin, any relevant dietary change should always be consulted. For the rest, for the person in menopause, without these special conditions, 2 whole eggs a day within a varied diet are, according to available evidence, safe and beneficial. And the most recent clinical nutrition guidelines, including updates from the American Heart Association, no longer establish a fixed limit of eggs for the healthy general population. It is not a trick. It is a minimum daily structure that concentrates everything we have seen into actions so concrete that you can start tonight. Minute 1. The breakfast decision. Tonight, before sleeping, decide what you are going to breakfast tomorrow. If you have eggs at home, that is it. Put them in sight in the refrigerator. The preparation takes no more than 10 minutes. The reason why this matters is that the decision of the previous night eliminates the friction of the morning. When you are in a hurry and hungry at the same time, the brain takes the easy path, which is almost never the most nutritious. Minute 2. The dinner review. Before dining tonight, ask yourself a simple question. Does my dinner have protein, vegetable, and some good fat? If the answer is yes, go ahead. If the answer is no, adjust one single thing. Add a soft egg, a handful of walnuts, half an avocado. You do not have to reinvent the entire dinner. A small adjustment made with consistency has more impact than a radical change that lasts 2 weeks. Minute 3. The registration of a signal. Choose a body signal that you are going to observe during the next 7 days. It can be the hunger level at 10 in the morning. It can be how you feel in energy at 3 in the afternoon. It can be how you sleep. Write it down on a paper or on the phone. A single indicator. When there is a positive change, even if small, the brain records it and reinforces the habit. That is the mechanics of real change. The complete ritual. 3 minutes, 1 decision, 1 review, 1 registration. Repeated for 7 days, it starts to build a new pattern. And at 50 something, consistent patterns are what works, not the drastic changes that last 2 weeks. Your body in menopause is not against you. It is responding to new rules with the tools it always had. Your job is not to force it, it is to inform it, to give it the materials it needs to do what it already knows how to do. You are not rowing against the current. You are learning where the current goes now and adjusting the oar. The direction changes when the information you give to your body each morning changes. If this video contributed something concrete to you, give it a like. That helps the channel a lot to reach more people who need this information. And if you know someone over 50 years old who is dealing with this topic, share the video. It can be exactly what they need to hear today. Write in the comments the word egg to let me know you reached here. And tell me which of the 3 mechanisms surprised you most, that of insulin, that of cortisol, or that of muscle. The next video that appears on screen will explain exactly what to eat at dinner so that cortisol drops while you sleep. Do not miss it. Yeah,